Hello, my name is Ashley Lothian. I'm the Curator of Education here at the San Bernardino County Museum. Today, I'm joined with our Curator of Anthropology, Tamara Serrao-Leiva. Hi, Tamara.
Hi,
Thank you for joining me today.
no problem. Thanks for having me.
So, would you mind sharing your career journey, really emphasizing your first interest in your respective field?
Yeah, um, so I think I was a freshman in college when I decided on archaeology as, my future. I got accepted into UC Santa Barbara. That's where I got my bachelor's. I remember declaring a political science major because I liked international relations, and I said, oh, maybe I'll work in an embassy one day. Um, and then I remember taking a Western history class, and the professor was an archaeologist. I think he's the only archaeologist in the history department. And I remember vividly sitting in class, and he was uh, talking, he had a map of Rome, and he was talking about Romans, how they traveled. And he said, archaeologists have found, and archaeologists say this is what this means. And I remember having this light bulb moment that it was like, wait, like I want to be the first one that touches these objects and the one who gets to decide what they mean,
Mm-hmm.
kind of as a natural skeptic. I was always skeptical of my textbooks and skeptical of the data, and so for me it really lit something in me. I was like, oh, like I can be that person. I can be the one to find these objects, and I can do that. So I think the next week I changed my major, because it really it spoke to me too, because I always wanted to do something where I could use my hands, but also something where I could use my brain. So I was always very creative, but also cerebral. So it was this perfect combination for me, and I could travel, so that helped. And so yeah, I got my bachelor's in classical archaeology, and then I went to Spain to the Universidad de Sevilla to get my master's in prehistoric archaeology, and lived there, and did field schools, went on excavations, really got to travel the world before I ended up back here in Redlands, back home. And then my career started. Then I worked in contract archaeology at a firm here in town. And then, a few years later, the opening at the museum came up, and, that was really a dream come true. It was cool too, because I had interned for the previous curator when I moved back. And so it was just kind of this full circle
Mm-hmm.
story. So yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Very cool. And would you mind speaking a little bit about, as a studying archaeologist, kind of like when you get to a site, just the process and how much data collection goes on and just how collaborative it is?
Yeah, I mean, that's all you're doing, right? Is collecting data. So you can actually see in this picture where we're in this pit. This pit it was lined with rocks, and some type of, it wasn't plaster yet, but it was some type of adhesive. Um, and I remember us digging and digging. We thought maybe it's a burial. There's a lined pit. There has to be something, right? So each layer we took down little by little, every inch, anything that came out, we stopped, we bagged, we recorded, we drew a profile, we drew an overhead. And we did that it took 6 weeks to just excavate this pit. Um, we found the bottom and nothing was ever in it. So I think
Wow.
either it had been looted before, which I don't know if we found stuff in place. So I don't think that necessarily happened, but maybe the pit was just dug and they never used it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's a flop. um, and sometimes you find other incredible objects, but the lack of data is data too. um,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's very meticulous. It can be quite cumbersome to, you're excavating the hot sun, and you find something and everything stops, and you have to, you know, record in 10 different places and get the mapping person to do an over, so it's really involved and really technical. So yeah, that's a little bit about how, and different excavations do it differently. This was an academic dig, so we can take our time, and we can, we took 6 weeks to do a couple different trenches. When you think of contract archaeology, that's much different. You have, 30 days to get in, get out, cover a huge area. It's a much bigger operation, usually. And so it functions a little differently too, depending on where you're at, whether it's European or Chinese or, California Indian. That will also depend on the amount of items you find and how long it takes to actually record what you find. So.
See. And where are you here in these rocks right here at the upper left?
That was, I believe, in the Cimmerian Gorge in Crete. That's where I did most of my field studies. And I think that's where I am. I don't remember now. We took a couple trips. But yeah, we hiked the Cimmerian Gorge, which I think is 15 kilometers. Half of it, the first half is all downhill.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's really slick. So it's just, oh, my legs afterward were just killing me. But it's nice because it ends at the beach.
Oh,
So,
wow.
So we did that little hike as kind of a field trip during the weekend of the excavation process. So, and then the other photo, gosh, see, I don't even remember. It's been so long where this was taken. I think this was in Greece. I think this was at Delphi. So you have the Olympic Games, which we all know, but in classical Greece, they also had the Delphic Games. So they were kind of parallel. The Delphic Games didn't continue, obviously, but we still know the Olympic Games. So at Delphi, they have, the 500-meter dash, and tourists usually go and run it. And it's like the original kind of campus where that happened. But I remember Delphi was really neat because there was also supposedly an oracle at Delphi. And you can tell why, like the environment in those mountains is really mystical and has kind of a special energy. So I think that's where that was.
So what would you say is your greatest accomplishment in the field to date, or just within your museum career?
That's a great question. Honestly, I don't think I've had it yet. And that's not to say, like, I've had really amazing milestones, right? Getting 2 degrees, being able to travel the world, getting the position at the museum was a huge accomplishment for me. But I think what maybe a not a really traditional answer to that would be following my gut through the whole process. You take jobs that you don't know if it's going to lead you to where you want to be, but for me, in the end, it all really worked synergistically to get me to where I am now and to the career I've dreamt of being in. So I think my greatest accomplishment was really trusting myself and understanding, following where kind of my piece was and understanding what my role in it is. Because I think when you understand your why, like why you do the things you do and why you want to learn things, and why you function in life every day, why you get up, I think that really, for me, really brought me to where I am, and it's going to continue taking me. So I think understanding my why I am in this world, and why I picked the career, I think that's going to lead me to maybe the next, you know, to greater and greater. And it's really grounding too, to understand. I know for me, my why is really to strengthen the connection we have to each other, and to strengthen the connection we have to our beginning. And so that really informs how I move every day. And I think it's really critical, especially in the anthropology department, to understand that type of connection we all have, just because of the, you know, the relationships that we build and we maintain. I mean, a huge accomplishment that just happened in December was we repatriated a group of cultural objects back to San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. And for me, that was, it almost seems like the opposite. In archaeology, you take, you dig, you record. This was a repatriation, so we were getting baskets back. But for me, honestly, that is a huge highlight, I think, in my career, because it's important. It was, is, and will be important to continue keeping those open lines of communication and transparency with the tribes, because we have so much that is theirs, really. So, yeah.
And what would you say is the most asked question you get as curator of anthropology?
I think the most frequently asked question is, what's the coolest thing you've found in the field, or what's your favorite thing? And to that, I always respond, it was my third year, I believe, on Crete. And it was the last day, because of course you always find the best stuff on the last day. And we were excavating. I was kind of cleaning up my area for the aerial photo. And as I was cleaning up kind of the sides, my trowel was making a funny sound. And so I started uncovering this base of a pot. I'm like, okay, it's rare, but it's not too rare. But as I kept excavating, I pull out this, it's like 22 centimeter kind of shallow bowl, completely intact. And I'm yelling to the director from the bottom of the trench, get over here. And we pull it out because it was upside down. So we pull it out and we collect the soil from inside for a soil sample. And it was right on bedrock. So it was literally the earliest thing that we had been there. You can't get earlier than bedrock. And we turn it over, and then as we clean it, on the inside, there was kind of an etching. It was like a triangle with a line across the top. And the specialist looked, and apparently it was Cretan hieroglyphics. So that pot, completely intact, was probably 4,100 years old. So it was so cool. It was exciting, again, it was the last day, and we found it, and I don't know, it was just so neat. I had never heard of Cretan hieroglyphics before. You think Egypt, right? And it's a typescript that hasn't been deciphered today, but we imagine that symbol means a goat or a bull. So it maybe was a shepherd's bull, and he buried it and just never came back for it. We believe it was buried on purpose, because usually when you find an artifact intact, like in a burial or in this case, this bull, it was buried on purpose. Usually, if something's accidentally left, it's broken or shattered, or it had broken and someone threw it out. Usually you don't find accidentally left objects in that type of condition. That same year we found this pewter chalice that was also, we believe, buried on purpose, because usually metals don't survive, because metals are easy to melt and to make into other things, and they're valuable. So yeah, I think that was the coolest thing I found. So that's the first question I get asked the most. I think the second question is if I found dinosaurs. And so I have to go into a discussion about, you know, the difference between archaeology, which is human history, and paleontology, you know, which is dinosaurs. And I'm sure you could talk to Crystal about that. Um, so yeah.
And what do we see here, these two baskets? What are these two baskets used for?
So these baskets, they're Southern California. We haven't determined affiliation yet. So we can't really tell you Serrano or Cahuilla or Luiseno, but we know they're Southern California. These we were taking photos for a nonprofit that makes curriculum, makes curricula for elementary school kids. And so we took some photos with basketry for them because they wanted to do a, you know, a STEM focused program for kids. So these two, they're both examples of baskets with kind of the snake motif. And I know the group really wanted that because they were talking about the environment. So they wanted this connecting point with art. So they wanted to show children, they wanted an entry point into science through art. So, which is really neat. So they were going to show a picture of this basket and say, okay, what do you see? And, you know, is this indicative of the environment that these people were in? You know, they probably put a snake on a basket because they were familiar with snakes. Then you go deeper into the basket. What's it made out of? Okay, well, juncus, sumac, deergrass, that's also found in the desert. So it's kind of compiling this story around the object, but also around the people who used the object.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Tamara, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. Bye.